I want us to kind of reflect on a question actually this morning before I get us started. And I just want you to imagine tomorrow, okay? From kind of like the moment you wake up to the moment you put your head on your pillow, go to sleep. In that day, what was one thing that you couldn't have gone without? So for some of us, it's that morning cup of coffee, yeah? For some of us, maybe it's just practical things like your phone. Maybe like I really needed the Wi-Fi. Maybe it was your family or friends really helped you in that day. We all have something that we rely on, right, to keep us going throughout our days, whatever that is. But as Christians, and really as kind of humankind, there is something fundamental that we need to help us in every moment, to help us live in freedom, to help us live in God and in Christ. Something, believe it or not, more life-giving than coffee, right? Getting emotional even thinking about my morning coffee. Something far stronger and reliable than your Wi-Fi connection, something deeper and more intimate than family. And that is the unconditional, ever-pursuing, mighty love of God. That's what we need. A love for all of us, but a love for you personally. A love that Paul says in Romans 5:5 has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit. And I think you probably heard a few sermons on God's love, but it's not a subject we can ever exhaust, is it? We can't fully get it all. That's just impossible, isn't it? I love what Paul says in Ephesians 3. We are to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. It's a love that we can't actually ever fully comprehend. It's wider than wide, it's longer than long, it's deeper than deep, it's higher than high. It just keeps going. That's the point. So I think we've got a lot to learn and experience about God's love. And that's what I want us to do this morning. That's what I felt stirred about this week. And to kind of show us this love, one of the things Jesus did is he told us a story. He told us a parable. And it's often called the parable of the prodigal son. But I think a better title, it's not as catchy, I understand, but it's probably more accurate, is the parable of the compassionate father and his two lost sons. Because in this story, if you're familiar with it, both sons are actually lost, right? Just in different ways. And Jesus begins the story in Luke 15. Get ready if you want to go there. He begins it by saying there was a man who had two sons. And there's been a lot of debate over the centuries because it's a parable, right? Who do these two sons represent? Some people think the elder son is the Jews and the younger son is the Gentiles. And the question is, God is inviting all people into his family. Will the elder brother, will the Jews, welcome and be glad that the younger son has come home, the Gentiles? And some people think the younger son is a bit like this story in Exodus, sold into slavery, and then the Exodus, right, out of Egypt, they finally come home. And some people think that the two brothers are two brothers we already know a lot about from the Old Testament, Jacob and Esau, perhaps. Both. One squanders their inheritance, the other stay home, if you know that story. And the father seems to bless the undeserving son, doesn't he? A bit of a more radical reading, it hasn't really taken on much of following, is to see Jesus as the prodigal son. He leaves his father's house. He goes off into a far country. He takes on sin. He suffers. And he's raised up and he's welcomed and he's celebrated. My theory, however, is that Jesus has already told us who the two sons are before he tells us this parable. That's my theory. Just before the parable, this is what we read. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So that's the setting, right? Jesus is hanging out with the wrong sort of people, tax collectors and sinners, yeah? One brother, the younger brother, and Pharisees and teachers of the law, the elder brother, okay? That's kind of my view. Can I have my volunteers, my 4 volunteers? If you remember, I asked you before this, would you stand on the stage? Oh, yes, Kev, you've remembered. Too busy eating your chocolate, I saw that. He's obsessed with chocolate. He won't stop talking about it. Right, Babs, you want to stand over here? Right, so you can a bit more. Go on then, a bit more. Who do you think looks more like sinners? No, neither. None of them look like sinners. It's a trick question. We're just going to pretend. So we've got the sinner here, tax collector, yeah, and it teaches. You can be a scribe, you can be a Pharisee. There we go. Okay, so this, I've just thought it would help you visually see the 2 sons, right? Okay, so over here, you've got the sinner and the tax collector. And people often say, I mean, sinner's not a really nice thing to say, is it? There's the tax collector. Oh, and by the way, there's the sinner. Like, it's not. And over here, you've got your Pharisees and your scribes, right? Not all Pharisees were bad, yeah, right? And then Nicodemus, if you remember from John's gospel, he's basically followed Jesus, right? But some of them had this kind of view. And what was that view? In the time of Jesus, the Jews were under Roman rule, okay? They didn't have their land, right? They were under Roman rule and it wasn't very good. They wanted their land back. And the Pharisees thought the reason that we don't have our land back is because people aren't keeping God's law. They're not keeping his commandments, right? There are lots of Jews, they had different views on why they don't have the land. Some people thought, we're never going to keep the law, so we're just going to take it by rebellion, right? But the Pharisees thought, no, actually, to get the land back, to get God's blessing, we need to keep the laws. And this is the scribes and Pharisees, right? And over here, the sinners are basically those people who aren't keeping the law, right? You're the reason we're in this mess, Kev, right? You're the reason the Romans are in charge. You're the reason we don't have our land back, okay? Because you aren't keeping the law and you aren't keeping the extra laws that the Pharisees are adding to the list, right? And so we're looking at you as sinners. And then we have the tax collectors. And what's wrong with the tax collectors? You work for HMRC? No one likes tax collectors, do they? And so the tax collectors, well, think about it. You're a Pharisee, right? And you have to give money, you have to be taxed by the tax collector, and that money goes to, the Romans, right? People so basically you're paying for your own chains, aren't you? Right? You're giving money to continue to rule and oppress us and take our land away from us. Sinners, tax collectors, Pharisees, scribes. And Jesus, apparently a really holy, godly man, yes, but he's eating with these people. So the Pharisees are thinking, why would you be eating with them, right? Why are you eating with the people whose fault this all is? Shall we give our volunteers a round of applause? Thank you, Kev. I think you got off worse there. Let's read this story then, okay? There was a man who had 2 sons. We've seen the 2 sons. Jesus continues, a man who had 2 sons. Verse 12, the younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property. That word property the word is life, right? He gave of his life between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. So in this story, the younger son demands, right, his financial inheritance from his father. And this wasn't unheard of for a father to divide his property before he dies. But think about it, it's quite dishonoring, isn't it? It's quite rebellious to say, hey, the money that you're going to give me when you die, can I have it now, please? Actually, if you read Deuteronomy 21, it says that rebellious sons are to be stoned, right? So if you want to read some stories to your children tonight, Deuteronomy 21, it's just a good place to go, I guess. It's in the Bible. You've got to read the Bible to your children. So culturally, it's a bad offense, isn't it? And his older brother, right, the firstborn, would have received double the inheritance of the younger son because the eldest children were expected to be the primary caregivers for their parents. And so with this smaller portion, the younger son takes his money, he leaves, he goes to a far-off country, and what does he do? He squanders his wealth in wild living. And when his pockets are empty, he decides to get a job. And in this moment, things get worse because a famine hits. And if you know anything about famines, it just makes everything worse, okay? Food runs out, work dries up. The compassion of other people seems to disappear. Everyone's in it for themselves. And the son is broke. And everyone's broke, in fact. So he's hungry, he's filthy, he's defiling himself by feeding pigs, which no Jew would ever do. And then we read this devastating sentence, right? Really sad. No one gave him anything, right? Rock bottom. And the Pharisees are listening to this story, and they're probably getting their coats on, ready to leave, thinking that's the end of the story, isn't it? The younger son, he gets what he deserves. He's rebellious, right? And the faithful older brother, well, he stays at home with his father. I just picture him about to walk away, right? But that's not the end, is it? And I do want to just pause at this moment and reflect. This is a story, of course it is, but it's not just a story. It's what the younger son does here is a picture of life when we do our own thing and we live life without God. I think for some of us here, you know, we can maybe feel like that today. Perhaps you do feel like this. Perhaps you feel like you're far away from God's presence. You're probably not broke financially, but spiritually, you do feel a sense of being bankrupt. You feel lost, you feel let down, you feel in a distant land, and actually the only food you're eating, the only spiritual nourishment feels a bit like pig food. But one thing never changes in this story, and one thing never changes in your life, and that is God's love is relentlessly chasing after you. Even when the younger son is at his worst, he is loved immensely. He might not know it, might not feel it, but it's true. Let's keep reading. When he came to his senses, this is the younger son, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out. I'll go back to my father. I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and he went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And so we read from this, don't we, that the son comes to his senses. It's like he wakes up from a really bad dream and he for the first time, he just sees really clearly. And it kind of echoes Psalm 51, if you're familiar with that. Against you alone have I sinned, right? The younger son realizes, actually, yes, sin damages lots of things, people, relationships. It causes pain, it leaves scars. But most importantly, right at the root, sin affects our relationship with God. It's rebellion against him. okay, against the God who made us and loves us. And admitting we've messed up, it's recognizing that our lives don't actually work apart from God. And the next bit's brilliant. I mean, can you imagine it? Try and picture it. The father likely went out each day, looked down the road, wishing, hoping that his son would return. Then all of a sudden, try and picture it, in the distance, the village, not just the father, but everyone sees this kind of scruffy, dejected, maybe even unrecognizable figure with no shoes on approaching. And the father just kind of like peers out like this. And he says, it's him. It's my son, right? And pushing past the father, I picture, just darts as fast as he's able. People are thinking, I didn't know he could run that fast, right? And he's forgetting his own embarrassment. And before a word of apology can even be spoken by the son, he's just drowned and smothered in hugs and kisses, isn't he? Before you can explain yourself, before you can clean yourself up, before you can prove anything, God just interrupts you with his love. He throws his arms around you, he kisses you, he declares, you are mine, right? You're loved, you're home. God isn't standing there like this, right? Tapping his foot, arms folded, waiting for the younger son to crawl back. Come on. No, he makes up the distance, doesn't he? Right? And sometimes, if we're honest, maybe we picture God like this. Maybe we live our lives like this, that God is disappointed in us. We haven't done good enough. I haven't read my Bible today. I'm going to read it tomorrow, but how do I come to him? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel bad? Do we picture God's arms crossed? He's angry. His eyes are rolling. Oh, here they come again. Actually, that is not the Father that Jesus shows us here. There is no lecture. There's no probation period. There's no groveling required, because this is the scandal of God's grace. That God loves you deeply, fiercely, maybe even unfairly, recklessly, and you can't do anything to earn it. It's always God who makes up the distance. It's always God who keeps the relationship going. We're in a covenant with God, but we're not the ones keeping the covenant going. He is, right? This is what God says to his covenant breakers in exile, those who've messed up big time, gone from their homes. He says this in Jeremiah 31, I have loved you with an everlasting love. That word is eternal. I have loved you with an eternal love. I've drawn you with unfailing kindness. Again, I will build you, and you shall be built, O virgin Israel. Again, you shall adorn yourself with your tambourines and go forth in the dance of the merrymakers. That sounds fun, doesn't it? Again, you shall plant vineyards on the mountains of Samaria. The planters shall plant and shall enjoy the fruit. My love, says God, will keep this relationship afloat. And I'll clean you up, and I'll restore you, and I'll build you up. And I won't stop there either. So get your tambourines out, get the wine glasses out. We're going to celebrate. And interestingly, that's exactly what happens next in this story, doesn't it? The father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. You know, we often think the eldest son was the most upset when the younger son returns home. But imagine how the poor fattened calf felt, right? He's been living his best life, well-fed, pampered. Then sadly, it's barbecue time, right? Poor calf. Never gets enough sympathy, I don't think, in this story. The son's return warrants a celebration. And so a special party is thrown with a fattened calf, a rare treat, providing enough food for an entire village. There's loads of symbolism here. Best robe, his father's robe, right? The ring with the family seal on. You're a son now. The sandals on his feet, servants didn't wear shoes. You're not a servant. You're coming back as a son. Lots of symbolism. The point is clear. The son is fully restored. His shame is covered. His status is renewed. His dignity is restored and returned. He's not merely tolerated. No, he's celebrated. All plans are off, says the father, because my son is home. So let's party. I don't know if anyone gets their shopping delivered to their house. Is it just anyone? Yeah. Great, 3 of us. Okay. I used to go to the shop and then COVID happened. And then we've just stuck with that pattern of getting food delivered. We just find it easier. But it comes with something even more exciting. Tesco substitutions. There's actually a website where people post some of the worst substitutions and the best ones. Look at this one. It's brilliant. They ordered bread. They got an octopus. I mean, that's not exactly like for like, is it? Can't really, if you've got a plan there to make some food, the octopus is kind of going to throw it in the mix a little bit. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Recently, I ordered a Tesco-owned hand mixer because I wanted to bake some cake. Nothing fancy, it's about £9. And the shop in delivery came to the door and he said, I'm really sorry, but we don't have that item, it's unavailable. And I felt really gutted, felt really down. I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to bake? What am I going to eat? I felt frustrated, I felt helpless. But then the delivery driver said, but thankfully it's been substituted for you. And this was and remains my most ultimate substitution because this hasn't happened since. I ordered a cheap £9 Tesco hand mixer and they substituted it for a very expensive KitchenAid hand mixer. That is the grace of God. I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it, right? Tesco just gives itself away. And this is the incredible, unjust reality of God's love and grace. And it makes us think, well, does the younger son deserve the party? Does he really deserve the expense, the fuss, everything? Well, not really. But that's the point, isn't it? God is gracious and loving and beautiful, not because we always are, but because he always is. And let's keep reading. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field, and when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of his servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. We're meant to notice a contrast here, all right? The younger son who was lost and outside working in a field, right? He's now inside the house. And the apparent inside older brother is now complaining from outside, right? Working in a field. The roles have changed. The tables have turned. The younger son's inside the father's house enjoying his banquet while the older son's outside working in a field. And from here, we're told he can hear music, he can hear dancing, and he's confused, and one of his servants explains what's happened. And rather than being happy, the older brother becomes angry and refuses to go in. So his father goes outside and tries to kind of reason with it. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you. Interesting word that, isn't it? And never disobeyed your orders. Now, just imagine the actual servants in the field over here in that, right? Really? Slaving away, have you? I mean, the nerve. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him? I think something inside the older son here thinks that grace must be earned. that he has to work for his father's approval. You can imagine his anger. Since he says it himself, he's been slaving and aiming to please his father his whole life, rather than simply accepting that he's a son and living from that reality. The older son settled for being a servant. Maybe the younger son he's thinking is really the father's favourite, he's probably thinking. Or maybe the older son is simply resentful at the fact that the younger kind of problem child is getting all the care and attention while his own faithful service hasn't received that kind of attention. What's he say? All his work and he's never even had a party with a small goat, right? And he's probably also thinking, hold on a minute. Now all the money that's being spent on this party is coming out of my inheritance because the son's wasted his. And this is how the father responds. My son, the father said, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours, notice before he says this son of yours, this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And this is the point, isn't it? God's gracious action is never and can never be earned, right? We should never respond to kind of God's grace by comparing how he treats us with how he treats other people, right? It's the same grace for everyone. And this is remarkable. Both sons struggled to understand the nature of love itself. The younger son thought he could live without it, and the elder son thought he had to earn it. But listen to 1 John. Beloved, let us love one another because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love doesn't know God, for God is love. God's love was revealed among us in this way. God sent his only son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us. And he sent his son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. God is love. Extraordinary sentence, isn't it? It's not just saying that God is like love or he is loving, but that actually he is love. God is many things in the Bible. Merciful, kind, patient, list them. We don't read God is mercy, God is kind. It's all true. He is these things. But John is making a pretty important point here. God is actually love, right? When he's merciful, he's loving in his mercy. When he's kind, he does this in a loving way. Even when God is angry, that's not who he primarily is. At his core, at the center, right? When you go right in, what you will find is love, love, love. That is God. He can't do anything else unless it comes from love. And if we are talking about God and we are not linking it to love and doing it lovingly, are we even representing him? And if we really want to know God, then we must know and show love. If we speak to one another without love, then we don't really know God and we aren't really speaking from him. Verse 10 is kind of what the older son needs to hear. It is not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. All those years I've slaved after you, the older son says, this alone is not enough. It is God's love demonstrated through Jesus. This is where we boast, right? It's from here that we're empowered to love like him. We can't save ourselves. Only Jesus can save us. I want to end by just reading a story. If you've come across something before called The Giving Tree. Anyone come across it? It's a children's story, but I think it's so rich and really echoes the younger son's story here. So it's story time with Josh. Are you ready? Once upon a time, there was a tree. And she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples. And they would play hide and go seek, and when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much, and the tree was happy. But time went by, and the boy grew older, and the tree was often alone. Then one day, the boy came to the tree, and the tree said, "Come, boy, come and climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I am too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have money. I want some money." "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I only have leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away, and the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back, and the tree shook with joy. And she said, "Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." "I am too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife and I want children, so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house, then you will be happy." And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build his house, and the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered, "come and play." "I am too old and sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you can sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away, and the tree was happy, but not really. And after a long time, the boy came back again. "I am sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone. My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them." "I am too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I am too tired to climb," said the boy. "I am sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish that I could give you something, but I've got nothing left. I am just an old stump. I am sorry." "I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could. "Well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down. Sit down and rest." And the boy did, and the tree was happy. Do you believe this? Do you believe that you are worth Christ dying for? Do you trust his deep love for you? Do you know right now how much you are loved? Maybe you have messed up. Maybe you've rejected him. Maybe you've used him when it suited you. But hear this, he still loves you with an everlasting love, not as you should be, but as you are right now. I like what C.S. Lewis says, God is not proud. He will have us, even though we have shown that we prefer everything else to him. So here's the question for you as we close. I'd like to invite the worship team. What might your relationship with God look like if you believed every day how loved you are? If you lived every day from the embrace of the Father who runs to you, restores you, and celebrates you. And so as we sing, maybe posture yourself in a place where you're ready to receive that love, to receive God's love, to be transformed as Kev prayed at the beginning, that you would leave this place a completely different person.